Welcome into Friday's ESPN FC Live. My name is Mark Donaldson. You'll recognise the man on the left-hand side, Miguel Echegaray. And delighted to welcome the Liverpool reporter for ESPN FC, Beth Lindup. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a good week for Liverpool, so happy to chat about it.
Okay, Stevie Nicol won't answer this question about which particular beverage he wishes to celebrate with Liverpool winning the title this year. I'm not going to ask you about that, but I will ask you, when you've got a 13-point lead, as Liverpool do have, as a journalist, what is it you're looking for when you pretty much know that the title is going to be won, as far as how you're going to cover what Liverpool are about to do?
Yeah, well, I was at Anfield on Wednesday night, and from the moment that the news of the Arsenal result filtered through, it was a real sort of party atmosphere inside Anfield, and it really made me think, should Liverpool carry on the current trajectory, the next few months promise to be sort of party after party, week after week. But yeah, from a journalist perspective, I suppose, we've done various permutations of when and where Liverpool could win it. It's looking likely maybe at home to Tottenham and things like that. So I guess the next couple of months will be about getting things prepared and ready to go for if they manage to get over the line. And yeah, that makes my job a little easier because I can maybe plan ahead of time a little bit. But yeah, I'm still sort of too superstitious to say it fully out loud. But I think it's looking very good for them at the moment.
Yeah, not bad. A 13-point lead. Arsenal, LME have got that game in hand. But no team has come back from more than a 13-point lead. It's more a case of when, not if, isn't it? Just stick a fork in this one because it's cooked.
Absolutely. And ironically, it was Arsenal who did that in 1997, 1998 against Manchester United to win the title. But this is done. Beth, get your bags ready. Start thinking about other content, like where Darwin Núñez is going to play next season, and maybe a single cam on Arne Slot every time Darwin Núñez does training, something interesting like that. But yes, it's over. Even if Arsenal go perfect, between now and the end of the season, even with that extra game, Liverpool just needs 7 wins from the final remaining 10 matches. They have 6 games remaining at home. All of them, of course, very doable to win, including Arsenal's match as well. And as I mentioned, the Gunners have to travel to Anfield too. And this is over, I think. And it's not really in the scheme of what we've seen Liverpool do in the last few weeks. It's what we've seen them do all season. Sure. It's a remarkable campaign. And I know that it might be too early to even talk about this, but not really hasn't been, MD. This is a remarkable campaign from a manager who just arrived to the Premier League. We kept talking about having to take over a legendary boss. This, in respect to this, is Jurgen Klopp. The fact that he's had to deal with 3 players who at this moment are running out of their current contract as well. Champions League, they top that table as well. It's been incredible. And throughout all the chaos and all the noise, Arne Slot has just been completely focused. Remarkable stuff. Whatever happens, they're going to win the Premier League title to match Manchester United's 20th title in the in the top division. It's unbelievable. So amazing stuff for Liverpool. But yes, it's not done. I know, Beth, but remarkable stuff from Arne Slot and the Reds.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Man United have had over Liverpool for as long as they've had over, and it's been a while, those 20 titles. And that big green box on the right-hand side, we will get to Mohamed Salah and his future shortly. But I want to kind of turn this one on its head, rather than will they, when it's pretty obvious that they will. Can they, Beth, equal or better Manchester City's record 19-point gap between winners and the rest? And what would that take between now and the end of the season?
Yeah, well, I think it will probably demand near perfection, maybe not quite perfection, because I do think Arsenal will probably drop more points between now and the end of the season, but I think it would demand a pretty impressive run to eclipse that record that Manchester City set. I also think sometimes when you get the title wrapped up nice and early, as Liverpool did when they last won it in 2019-20, they were on course at that point to surpass City's incredible record as being Centurions. And then just toward the latter end of the campaign, I think, psychologically, when there's not as much on the line, I think it's so difficult to maintain those levels, particularly if you're coming up against teams who are fighting for one thing or another. So I'm not 100% convinced Liverpool are going to do that, but Arsenal do look pretty pretty poor at the moment, and obviously they didn't play terribly against Nottingham Forest the other evening, and I caught a little bit of that, but they just look so blunt up top. And, we know Bukayo Saka's still out for a little while, Gabriel Martinelli as well. So I suppose it maybe depends more on what Arsenal do than Liverpool in terms of trying to bridge that gap at the top. But, Liverpool, if they win it by 1 point or 20 points, as they're celebrating at the end of the season, I'm not sure they'll be too bothered.
Well, that's the thing, because they're still involved in so many cup competitions. It might be a case of celebrations have to be on hold because there's still big games to come. Look, that's all something that you can worry about. It's first world problems. Don't have any issue with that. You can enjoy it when that happens. I want to get on to Mo Salah now, and I want to take you back, LME, to 2013-2014 season. That was when Luis Suarez had 43 goal involvements, either goals or assists. That's the Liverpool club record. It's not a Premier League record. That was Alan Shearer in 1994-95 with 47, and Andrew Cole the year before, also with 47. It would be a surprise, not if Mohamed Salah overtakes Luis Suarez, but if Mohamed Salah, come the end of the season, assuming he stays fit, maybe even gets 50 or more the way he's playing. Is it his best ever season personally?
His best, yes, 100%. Because when you look at the barometer of what Mohamed Salah has done, and obviously we've seen the goal statistics that we've seen in the past, when you look at these numbers that you're seeing on the screen, I always think about the overall goal contributions, as you have discussed already at the beginning of this question. To me, when you compare this, at 30 goals, 21 assists in 39. To me, for the fact that he's going to be 33 years old this summer, working under a new manager, again, dealing with the external situations of whether he's going to stay with Liverpool, move or whatever, all those components to me, at this point, if this continues, to me, it will make it as the greatest season any player has ever done. And I know that it's important to understand context here, especially for young viewers, because you mentioned, obviously, the likes of Lucho Suarez and Andy Cole. And in the Premier League, by the way, was it 93, 94, when Andy Cole, newly promoted Newcastle,
yes,
34 goals. None of them were penalties. That's remarkable. I think about Cristiano Ronaldo as well in 2007, 2008, when he scored 31 goals in the Premier League, and Sir Alex Ferguson was just like, over 40 contributions in all competitions as a winger, by the way. He wasn't a striker in that situation. Jamie Vardy, who was playing non-league football in the lead up to when they won the 2015-2016 Premier League title. Erling Haaland, of course, what he did a few seasons ago in his debut season to break the single season goal record in the Premier League. So all these, Thierry Henry, how can we forget Thierry Henry, 2002, 2003 as well, in the Premier League. But when I think about what Mohamed Salah has done in every competition, under a new manager at 32 years old, as a winger, it's remarkable. And if this continues, because there's still matches to go, both in the Champions League as well as the League Cup final as well, and of course in the Premier League, it will be, in my opinion, the greatest season by any Premier League player ever.
Let's take another look at that Mohamed Salah graphic. So this is all competitions. The one I mentioned is the 42 goal contributions in the Premier League. He's got another 9, whether it's Champions League, FA Cup, or League Cup. And Beth, I want to take you back to last summer. We had Liverpool against Betis on ESPN. I was speaking to Arne Slot beforehand about what we can expect from the tactics. Where's Mohamed Salah going to play? Now, LME said it's his best season so far, and he's already matched his numbers personally from his previous best season. So I don't think there's any doubt about that. But as someone that covers Liverpool on a weekly basis, what have we seen from when they played Betis in Arne Slot's first pre-season game in the United States way back in July with regards to comparing and contrasting his position, Mohamed Salah, with Jurgen Klopp and now under Arne Slot?
Yeah, I think there's not a major difference, but I do think there were times, certainly last season, when it just seemed like he wasn't close enough to the goal. And it felt like that was something that Liverpool just needed to do. They needed to make sure that he wasn't just sort of hugging the touchline, and I'm not quite sure they were successful at that really last season. I think this season we've seen him come into the box a lot more, but I just think this season, and it has always been the case really, but this season to an even greater degree, he is the focal point of the team. Darwin Núñez Diogo Jota have both come in to that centre forward role at times, and Luis Diaz as well as a false nine, and they've helped the team in that sense. But the number 9 for Liverpool is not the focal point of the attack. The focal point is Mo Salah, and I think everything that the team does is geared towards under Arne Slot helping Mo Salah be the best that he can be. And I think as much as that is the case, I think Mo Salah, he's often had it levelled at him in the past that he's a selfish player and that he takes on too many shots when maybe he should pass and things like that. But you've only got to look this season his assist record. I think he got asked himself the other day, is this your best season? And he said, well, I think I'm helping the players around me more in terms of helping them get the numbers up, in terms of assisting as many players as he can. And that Newcastle game the other night, he didn't score, but he got an assist, and just some of his passing in that game and his movement, it was just an absolute joy to watch. And, I think the thing for me that stood out most this season from last season, because don't forget, it was only sort of last April when he was having a touchline spat with Jurgen Klopp because he'd been left on the bench. And I just think you look at him now, he just seems so much happier. And, I'm not saying that that's because of the manager, because he does still have a good relationship with Jurgen Klopp, and all managers and players clash at times. But I just think he just seems to be really, really enjoying himself, enjoying playing under Arne Slot, enjoying playing in this team that is very much geared towards getting the best out of him. And every single week there's a smile on his face. And it's been one of those seasons that is just, as a journalist, you feel super lucky to be able to watch a player who will be talked about. And this season of his, is certainly if he continues it right up until the end, will be talked about for many years to come, I think.
I'll just add, MD, very quickly on something that Beth just said, which is about obviously, difference in manager, and it's not the manager. He had a good relationship with Jurgen. If I can just respectfully just disagree slightly on Beth. I think it is the manager, specifically this season from a football perspective, because I think that what Arne Slot has done, and obviously I agree with Beth about the relationship, obviously the great relationship he had with Jurgen. But, Beth, you did bring that point of when they had that spat last season. And to me, that has a lot to do as well with the fact when in the manner and how Liverpool played under Jurgen's club, which is obviously, it was so inspirational and it did bring titles and it did bring so much happiness. Under Arne Slot, this is a controlled vehicle now. This is a controlled machine where, collectively speaking, every player is now more in tune. So because every player, the other 10 players, including Alisson, know exactly what they're doing when they don't have the ball, when they have it, at a more controlled pace. And that's a key word I'm using here. At a more controlled pace. Doesn't mean that it's rock and roll, heavy metal every single time. It's more control. Salah now has more of an opportunity to be himself. And Beth quite rightly discusses how there's been so many games where he doesn't score, but he's creating so much. I mean, it's unbelievable, but I think it's because everybody else is now so in tune with the game plan. And to me, that's down to the manager. It's unbelievable what Slot has done. Obviously, Salah is amazing and he deserves all the accolades, but I cannot stress enough just how much of a plaudit and how much celebratory we need to be towards Arne Slot. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Not just the manager, because Beth brought up the fact that although Mohamed Salah didn't score in midweek, he did get the assist for Alexis McAllister. And it's funny, I was watching that and I was thinking there's at least 2 Newcastle defenders there around him, which means there's going to be 1 Liverpool player spare. But everyone else is like a cat on a hot tin roof. The Newcastle defenders, oh no, Salah's got the ball. And yes, he's looking for that shot, but he's also aware. Now, that time it was McAllister. Previously, it was Szoboszlai. And as much as we've given Gravenberch and McAllister and Cody Gakpo a lot of praise this season, and they thoroughly deserve it, Beth, you wrote a piece for ESPN this week about Dominic Szoboszlai and someone that's hitting form at the right stage. 5 goals now in the Premier League this season in 21 Premier League starts. He's adding the goals to his game that we always felt that was the one thing that was missing from this super player.
Yeah, I think that is the one criticism that he's had levelled at him, that he maybe doesn't contribute enough in terms of goals and assists. And I think, when he came in from Leipzig, he was seen as this really attacking midfielder. And we've seen flashes of that. We saw it in the early months at Anfield, and people were comparing him to Steven Gerrard in his first few months. And I think in a way then he became a little bit of a victim of his own success because he wasn't quite delivering that same level of performance. He had a couple of injuries last season as well, which I think stunted his development a little bit. But this season, I think he's been tremendous, certainly sort of the last few months. And, I think it's been noticeable in a few games that he hasn't played. He had a little spell out of the team with suspension and illness back in January. And I just think Liverpool's energy levels, the work rate collectively, the running power within the team just diminishes so significantly when he isn't part of the team. And I think what we've seen, we saw it against Manchester City, at the end of the 90 minutes, he gets a goal and assist, but his running power in that game, I think it was 11.5 kilometers he ran more than anyone else on the pitch. And right at the final whistle, he just collapses to the turf because he's totally exhausted. And, I think that's the defining image of Dominic Szoboszlai, really, and just his, unrelenting ability to run and fight for the team. And as part of the piece that I wrote, I spoke to a number of people back in Hungary, sort of people who've coached him or people who have watched his development. And, they spoke a lot about how he's a special talent, how he's always been a special talent, but also his ability to deal with pressure. Back in Hungary, he's totally revered as like a godlike figure almost. He's one of the most famous people in the country. He's everywhere. If you go out in Budapest, he's on advertising boards, billboards everywhere. And for someone so young, he's still only 24, to shoulder that responsibility, I think shows the type of character he is. And that combined with his technical quality and his work rate makes him a very special player.
That's a good article. Check it out at ESPN.com. Now, moving topics, but keeping on the Liverpool theme, we're going to preview all the Champions League fixtures coming up in midweek. So why not start with Liverpool against PSG? And LME, is this a harder game for Liverpool against this PSG or against the PSG stacked full of stars, where we know several teams have had issues in the Champions League, none more so than PSG over the years?
No, this is a harder game. Luis Enrique now has this PSG team clicking. They actually haven't lost. You have to go all the way back to their loss to Bayern Munich in November for a PSG loss. They're running away with Ligue 1, which is obviously not surprising. But what Luis Enrique has done, which has been his aim from day one, even with the Mbappé drama, has been to just make them a more collective unit. And by the way, now that they have Kvaratskhelia in this team, they become even more dangerous. So these are the two most informed teams in Europe going up against each other. This is going to be a very difficult game for Liverpool, I think, because they are clicking for all the reasons that we just discussed. Here's the thing. It's not just about the individual. Here's what I'll say. They're both actually very similar in terms of how they're doing things right now, because they are together as a team going forward and together as a team protecting what they have. I mean, PSG destroyed Brest in the Champions League. It was embarrassing. And they've kept on going and winning. So now this, to me, is an interesting matchup. I think Ousmane Dembélé did a tremendous favor to himself in going back to his country and playing for PSG. From Barcelona, of course. I mentioned Kvaratskhelia, of course, but there's so many weapons all over. So I'm excited about this one, and it's the most difficult matchup for me to predict, because over the course of two legs, and obviously Arne Slot has to also focus on what's going on in the Premier League and the Carabao Cup final as well. So it's going to be a tricky one, but to answer your question from the very beginning, this is a much harder task than all those superstars. They are talented, collected, very smart unit against Luis Enrique. Two very good managers, two very good teams. It should be great.
Last time Liverpool lost at home, this will be the second leg against PSG, was that 5-2 against Real Madrid. Not many teams go to Anfield and get a result. Therefore, Beth, does PSG need to win this first leg on home soil? Would a draw not be good enough to go into a second leg in front of a full house?
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool beat prime Barcelona with prime Lionel Messi 4-0 at Anfield. So I think I completely agree with LME. I think PSG are a really scary proposition for a lot of teams at the moment, and I think that they will undoubtedly give Liverpool a really hard time of it, I think, over the two legs. But Liverpool will feel like with Anfield behind them, they can beat anyone by 2-3 goals if they need to, if the atmosphere it is at a certain level and the crowd are up for it, which they most certainly will be. So yeah, I think even if Liverpool were to lose the first leg by 1 goal, maybe even 2 goals, but certainly 1, they would feel like they would have more than enough to go at Anfield and give it a real good go. So yeah, I would say from from a PSG perspective, I think they definitely probably need to win that first leg. As they certainly can't afford to let Liverpool win that on Wednesday night. I think they need to be going to Anfield with something to defend and to fight for, and then they've obviously got such an incredible wealth of attacking talent that they can maybe then look to sort of soak up the pressure at Anfield and hit Liverpool on the counter. But yeah, I think that first leg being away from home and the second leg being at Anfield, I think is why for me Liverpool maybe just have the edge in terms of likelihood of getting through to the quarterfinals.
So the winners of that tie face the winners of Club Brugge against Aston Villa. So I was looking back at Tyrone Mings' Wikipedia, because everything on Wikipedia is true. I didn't ever see him as a goalkeeper, an actual goalkeeper, where he was the named goalkeeper. I've seen him pick the ball up before. And that was against Club Brugge in the league stage. This is the draw that Club Brugge wanted, and it's the draw that Aston Villa wanted. Everybody's happy here, but your boys are sluggish a wee bit, losing 4-1 at Palace. You confident or nervous about this tie?
No, I'm cautiously optimistic, but to your point, that Palace loss, it's not often that I criticize Unai Emery. I think he got it wrong with his lineup and his strategy. It was the 7th game of the month. Like, legs are wearing, and unfairly so, because Villa only have one Premier League game in March. Everything was kind of bundled up in February. But Palace deserved the win. Villa deserved the loss, and Unai Emery made some mistakes. But I think you began with the correct statement here. Both sides are pretty happy overall that they're facing each other. This, of course, as you mentioned, was, I've seen some things as a Villa fan, and for Tyrone Mings to do this, to pick up the ball after Divo Martinez passes it to him from a goal kick, was absolutely hilarious for the wrong reasons, and Brugge ended up winning 1-0 in the league phase. But Brugge surprised me a lot when they beat Atalanta, because they were my dark horses to go far here. They played very well against the Serie A side, got the tactics absolutely spot on against Gasperini's team. So now I'm thinking this game, and any game really in this round of 16, is going to be difficult, especially for Villa. Yes, and Villa are looking tired, and they need to get these players back on form. As we tape, of course, looking ahead to an FA Cup 5th round matchup against Cardiff. On paper, obviously, it should be a Villa win, but there are injuries, and I am worried. But hopefully, because it's 2 legs, Villa will remain close. Unai Emery is so experienced in Europe, and just like Beth was talking about Liverpool doing the business back at Anfield, I'm hoping that it's close in the first leg, and then back at Villa Park, Villa will come out victorious, and then we'll see what happens. But yes, then it gets really interesting, of course, in the next stage.
Yeah, it does. Let's stick with a Tuesday game, Beth, before we get to the Madrid derby. PSV against Arsenal. Now, Arsenal have got injury issues. They need a striker. They haven't really got one for the Premier League. However, they're going to get Saka back, and they may get others back between now and the end of the season that can walk straight back into the side when they're fully fit. PSG is not a bad tie. They're better than they have been in recent years, and it'll be tough. This isn't a bad tie for Arsenal, this draw, is it, PSV?
Yeah, when that draw was made, I did feel like that was probably one of the best options that Arsenal could have. I think, in being drawn against PSV on this side of the draw, it potentially makes life a little bit difficult for them further down the line if they get there. But I think in terms of PSV, Liverpool obviously played them in the league phase, and it was quite hard to judge really how good they were, because Liverpool had a much changed team, virtually just a team full of kids really, and fringe players. And PSV only just about managed to beat them. So you would think that Arsenal, would be able to probably have enough to get them over the line. And I think, as I say, against Nottingham Forest, I actually don't think Arsenal were too bad. It is just finding those players to score the goals. And, I'm sure that is what Mikel Arteta and his players will be working on in training between now and next week, is trying to work out whether that be, Marino, whether that be Wanyeri having more of a role to play. I'm not too sure, but I think they need to find that goal scorer who can put the ball in the back of the net. I think man for man, the team, even Arsenal, a weakened Arsenal, the superior team. But I suppose it's just about who can be clinical and put the ball in the back of the net.
The winners of that face either Real Madrid or Atleti. And before we came on, LME. I was doing prep for this weekend's game. Atleti have got Athletic Club at home. They had Barcelona in midweek. They've got Real Madrid this midweek. It's a crazy run of 6 games for them in March, but Diego Simeone never looks ahead further than the game that he's about to play. But we can look ahead to midweek. And after what happened in the final in 2014 and in 2016 as well, with Atleti losing to Real Madrid, they're not frightened of them. That's the one thing I would say about Atleti. They've got really good players as well. I think this is a really tough one to call. What do you think?
Yeah, I love what you said about they're not frightened on anybody, because that's Atletico de Madrid. Yeah. They don't care who you are. And Diego Simeone, you mentioned that Barcelona game in Copa del Rey. What a game that was. And that's Atleti just not caring, just going through and through. And I'm going to tell you something. I see Atleti winning this, actually. I think that they're going to do the Muhammad Ali thing against Foreman in Rumble in the Jungle, when you're just going to take the blows, take the hits in that first leg, keep it close, and then in that second leg, because you're home now, you're going to go all out. And we mentioned this a few weeks ago about Atleti, and we know I'm a huge fan of Diego Simeone, because he has a team that they work in stages. First 15 minutes, we're just going to keep it tight. The next stage, we're going to make sure that we stay in it, even though you think even though you think as the opponent that you're taking the lead. We're going to keep on plugging away. And now we have the tools to do it. We have a really good Antoine Griezmann, Julian Alvarez, who's loving playing there, and then Sorloth comes in the last 15 minutes to absolutely give you that Muhammad Ali blow at the very end. And that's what I see happening in this game. By the way, I think Atleti's going to win. Real Madrid have issues defensively, and as attractive as they are offensively over the course of 2 legs. And I know you could never kill Real Madrid, but in this situation, I'm gonna go against the rub here, and I think Atleti are going to win.
Yeah, the second leg at home at the Metropolitano could be key, because there's only one team that's gone there this season. Nobody in La Liga. Only one team that's gone there and won, and it's Lille. And Lille take on Borussia Dortmund on Tuesday. That's called
What a segue.
See, you like that? This one's tough. This is a toss of the coin. Probably Lille, because if they can win at the Metropolitano, they can win anywhere. But Beth, for me, this is it's like Real Madrid in the Champions League just become a different animal. So did Borussia Dortmund. So they're struggling in the Bundesliga. But this is a tough one to call, Dortmund against Lille. Who do you like to go through out of these two?
Yeah, I think Dortmund obviously have that experience, certainly, of getting to the final last season, and like you say, I think they're a different animal really in the Champions League. Lille have sort of been one of the surprise packages, haven't they, of the campaign? I'm not quite sure anyone anticipated that they would do as well as they have done. So it is a tough one to call. I'm going to just say Dortmund edge it for me, but I could very easily be proved wrong. I think it's probably out of all of the ties, it's maybe one of the trickiest ones to call. 2 words for you, MD. Serhou Guirassy. He used to play for Lille, right? This kid, man, 4 goals against Union Berlin. He's absolutely on fire. I think he's gonna. I think Dortmund. I think, like Beth said, their experience will outdo things, and I think in Europe they proved to be a little bit better. And by the way, we know that Lille destroyed Feyenoord in the previous game, but then they lost the French Cup a few weeks after that. So they're a little bit inconsistent. And then they're playing PSG tomorrow as well. So that might be taking a lot. I think Guirassy is going to score a hat-trick, and then overall Dortmund will come through.
They can score. It's just going to keep them out at the other end. Let's stay with the Bundesliga for the Wednesday tie. I think it's 6 games now. Bayer Leverkusen are unbeaten against Bayern Munich. I said that Atleti aren't frightened, LME, of Real Madrid, and Bayer Leverkusen is not frightened of Bayern Munich. I'm still to be convinced by Vincent Kompany. Does this have a little bit of an upset written potentially on it?
Yeah, I think so, because we talked about, you mentioned not afraid. Leverkusen should never be afraid because they have Xabi Alonso, who is just the kind of manager that if you're a player and you enter that dressing room and you're about to enter the pitch to play a game, and your manager Xabi Alonso, you're just so happy because you know exactly what you're doing for 90 minutes. And I think that's why Leverkusen has such a good record, specifically recently, because Kompany has never beaten Leverkusen. I mean, I say never, obviously, it's very recent, but they have already played 3 times, and Leverkusen has always either come up on top or not lost. And I think this game is going to be tricky for Bayern Munich for all those reasons, because I think that Leverkusen is such a well-oiled machine. And by the way, in the previous round, they needed a 94th minute goal from Alphonso Davies to draw against Celtic at home. So Leverkusen are definitely not going to fear anything. Harry Kane is obviously going to be the main man. There's so much other talent, but I think Leverkusen could squeeze in here.
Beth, Benfica or Barcelona? Who goes through from that tie?
It has to be Barcelona, doesn't it? I know that they've maybe not had they've been slightly wobbly at times over the past few weeks, but I do think Barcelona for me just have far too much firepower. And of course, the last time that they met, it massively delivered, one of the games of the Champions League season. So fingers crossed it will be an equally entertaining game. But I think when you look at that side of the draw, Barcelona are probably my pick to get to the final from that side.
Over Liverpool?
Well, they can't meet Liverpool to the final until the final. So I think
Liverpool from that side of the draw.
That side of the draw, yeah. So
is that your final then, Beth?
I think a lot of it depends on the outcome of the Madrid derby. I think Liverpool's record against Real Madrid is absolutely terrible. Certainly when it comes to knockout games. So I think it would be some statement for Arne Slot to beat them, 3 times potentially in a season. But yeah, I think Barcelona are looking good for me on that side of the draw.
LME, you can have the last one. It's never dull behind the scenes at Feyenoord, but they've got Inter. Can they reach another final? Who goes through from that tie?
I think Inter. Simone Inzaghi remains one of the most underrated managers. I know that sounds silly outside of Italy, but it is to be so. They're leading in Serie A. It hasn't been always great, and it never really is with Inter, both externally and internally. But Feyenoord, especially, that last game against Milan, I think, they were lucky about Milan's red card. They're not exactly, they lost Santiago Jimenez, who's obviously a massive, massive offensive weapon. He was for them. Inter have the experience. They are looking good. They're also looking good in the Italian Cup as well. I think Inter have a very good chance of progressing against Feyenoord and going even further, just because they know exactly who they are in the Champions League and European competition. I see Inter going through, and then we'll see what happens after that. But Simone Inzaghi, to me, remains one of the best managers in European continental competition.
That's midweek. That's the Champions League on Tuesday and on Wednesday. ESPN FC Live returns on Wednesday to look back at the Tuesday games and preview the Wednesday games. And of course, ESPN FC every single night on ESPN Plus in North America. It's the FA Cup this weekend. Liverpool have got a weekend off, which might not be a bad thing as they chase more history in the Premier League. My thanks to LME. My thanks to Beth as well. Hope you've enjoyed it today, Beth. And we will see you again soon. Bye.